your spirit? Do you understand that divorce rate is so high? If you ask people what the number one cause that attribute to their divorce, most of them will say finances.
That's right. Yes,
So
sir.
of course you should be going after these guys. Not only are we going to beat you, but now you're going to pay us. So cross motion for damages, quiet title. Quiet title, you got to know what that means. You got to Google and do a little research on quiet title. So a quiet title means that this is an action that you can take proactively where you're in foreclosure but they haven't started a legal proceeding against you, or if you're in a state that has non-judicial foreclosure, you could start a quiet title action. So you can file an action and you file before the bank does. Imagine that. These banks are shocked too. You're suing them. You're suing them before they sue you. Sue them. Quiet title means that they have to bring all of the proof of ownership to court. You have to bring proof of ownership. Everybody's claiming any right to this title because I own this property. That is not up for debate or dispute. If you purport to have that, then you have to bring very specific proofs. And we'll talk about that later, what these specific proofs are, that again, we have never lost that type of action.
Mm.
Uh, Additionally, wrongful foreclosure action. So sometimes in Supreme Court, these guys are friends with the courts and they do so many foreclosures. It's just for the court, it becomes routine.
Right.
And they just
Right.
want to churn you through the foreclosure process. The judge is trying to get it off of their docket. They just want to get this done. You're not responding properly. You didn't do a cross motion. You didn't do some of these other things. You didn't reply correctly. You didn't mention the right key words. And so the judge is just going to push you through it because you don't know any better. And your attorney is just in it to collect the retainer. Because remember, most attorneys are charging a minimum of 25 grand to start the action, and that is where it starts. You might end up paying 100 or 200 grand for an attorney to try to save your house with no guarantee. He's going to try to save it and give it the best, but there's no guarantee. So a wrongful foreclosure action, you can take it to a different court. So sometimes the judges, they don't want to hear anything you say. They just want you to get out of the house. So you need a different judge. So you start a new action where you are the plaintiff, not the bank. The bank is the defendant. So the bank is trying to foreclose on your house, take them to a different court and sue them for $1 million. The price of the house plus emotional damages, 2 or 3 million bucks. Get their attention. Motion to vacate. A lot of you who have lost your house already to a foreclosure sale, before it goes to sale, you could still file a motion to vacate, have your attorneys find the grounds for a motion to vacate. If they're having trouble, they can call us and we'll help them do a forensic audit to track and find something. But motion to vacate and show cause. On a show cause, with a show cause, you can stop the sale in one day. So we had a client recently that came to us very late in the action, and we had 5 days notice, 5 days before her house went to sale, and so and she came to us on the weekend. So I'm like, oh boy. So obviously the you go through your list, the proper response is a show cause, and fortunately, she was able to shut it down. But I want you to understand how powerful that tool is. So this client, again, uh, she went to file the document, got there late, left the document with the judge. They put it on the judge's desk. The judge read it, and he shut down the foreclosure. So these are all actions that you have to. Even I know you think, well, like hire an attorney. He's going to save my house. Man, you better get out of here. Ask your attorney what is their track record. How many homes have you saved? What is your percentage of saving your home? I guarantee you it's less than 50-50. I guarantee you. Ask them, though, to be quite honest. Show me the last few houses that you saved. You should have a document that says foreclosure dismissed. And I'm going to show you later on what these documents should look like. Before you give somebody 20 or 30 G's, 40 G's to save your house, at least see what their last couple cases look like. How'd you do on the last couple cases? Please show me. That is your mistake. You're blindly hiring people and hoping and praying that they do you right in a system that's designed to do you wrong.
Right. Right.
Foreclosure defense. Now, this is a big topic, and we don't really have time to go into all of them, but this is the list that you have to know. Any of your attorneys, if they're mounting a credible defense for foreclosure, they should have one or all of these listed in your documents. That's why I want you to read them. So, standing and capacity, champerty, QWR. If you show this list to an attorney and they say, "Well, what is that?" then you have a problem. Run. Dual tracking, note and mortgage, foreclosure prevention, which we talked about, is mandated by law. If the bank has not followed the exact protocol for that, then you have grounds to throw out the foreclosure. Loan modification. Again, if they're required by law to offer you, if you qualified and they didn't give it to you, that's grounds to throw out the foreclosure. But you have to deal with somebody that's an expert that can do a forensic audit of your loan modification so that they know that you qualify. You got to really qualify and be able to do a outline that documentation. Life of the loan transaction report. Get out of here. Man, do you know how many mortgages we have saved, how many loan mods we have gotten, how many foreclosures we've stopped with that simple document that I'm telling you, I haven't seen an attorney ask for that specific document, but that is one of the things that you need. Chain of title.
Talk about that for a minute, would you please, sir? Just what information is on that report and why it is so vital for each client or consumer to have in their own possession.
Okay, so the life of the loan transaction report is the entirety of the accounting of that loan from inception. It is, again, let me say that again. It is the entirety of the loan since inception. This is what happens in a foreclosure. You had the original mortgage company. They sold and fractionalized that mortgage 20 times. Maybe 20 mortgage companies have touched that loan, right? So now you're in court with somebody you don't even know, right? And they're saying you owe them some money. I don't even know you. And you ask saying I owe you some money. So what they do is they take the last couple mortgage statements and bring them to court as evidence that you ain't paid a mortgage. That's not evidence I didn't pay the mortgage. I need to see the life of the loan transaction. That means every single statement from inception. Why? Because I don't believe that you did the accounting properly. I don't believe that. I'm telling you this. Again, the percentage is so small where we have gotten the life of the loan transaction report and not found accounting errors. They're always there. Wow. That is why you're more, listen, I know you ain't paid that mortgage in a couple years, but it still shouldn't be doubling and tripling. It should be only growing at the rate of your interest rate. It doesn't grow at the rate of your payments plus interest. No. If you don't, you pay your payments to shrink the principal. The principal should not be growing at the interest rate plus your payments. That is why you owe this. You only bought the house for $200,000, but the bank saying you owe $500,000, right? Because you didn't do a life of the loan transaction report.
Crooks, man. Crooks.
To banks. I want to see the original mortgage company because I started out paying this thing really well. I want to see how you were doing the accounting because this thing is set up to steal your house. Because they were flipping these houses, they constructed a system to steal your money. Please get the life of the loan transaction report. Chain of title, you need the fractionalization report, securitization report, and this is really important, the year 2010. Every mortgage before 2010 can be saved. It really, when I say it's impossible to lose your house to foreclosure, almost impossible, I'm really talking about houses where the mortgage was before 2010. After 2010, they started cleaning up their act. So you can still save it, but it's a whole lot more work. Listen to me. It's a lot of work to save your house after 2010. So if you got a new mortgage, in 2014 and now you are having trouble, it's still possible to save that house, but it's going to be much more difficult. If you have a house before 2010, it's a wrap. You better not be letting nobody foreclose on your house before, and you got a mortgage before 2010. You better not do it.
Yes, sir.
Really, when you go to the National Mortgage Settlement, nationalmortgagesettlement.com website, you will see that any of those mortgages before that were fraught with so much fraud and they collected so much money from the government, they're almost paid for that mortgage already. So don't feel bad. And the final thing that you want to see somewhere in your legal documents is consideration. Consideration means any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract. Let me give you an example of how that works. And I'm going to use a very vulgar example. So a friend of mine had a really bad drug problem. And another friend of mine knew that. So one day, the friend with the drug problem went by to visit him, and he was, desirous of getting high again. So the friend that knew him, because we were all friends, remembered that this guy had a stereo system that was worth about $250,000. At one time, this guy was very successful. So he had a $250,000 stereo. And he said, listen, I'll give you, a small amount of money. I forgot what it was. $5,000, $10,000, whatever. Let me buy that stereo from you for $5,000 or $10,000. Now, this is a $250,000 stereo. Even at a pawn shop or whatever, it ought to be worth at least $50,000. On the used market, it probably was worth $100,000. But this guy was really in a hurry. He didn't have time to pawn it or whatever. So he took the $10,000, done. He's happy. So later on, when he starts to clean up his act and he's sober, he realizes he sold a $250,000 stereo for $10,000.
Wow.
So fortunately, he took one of my classes and he sued the guy because he asked him to give him the stereo back. He said, look, man, here, take $20,000. Just give me my stereo back. He said, I'm sorry for putting you in that position. But the guy had a $250,000 stereo. He wasn't giving it up. And I said, man, come on. You know the guy got a problem. But everybody's not built that way. They don't understand you reap what you sow. So no problem. So the guy sued him. And I said, and I hate to get in the middle of friendships, but right is right. So I said, sue him on consideration. So what consideration means is you have to bring like consideration sufficient to support the contract. So what the judge reviewed was he had to pull an estimate of what the value of that stereo was currently on the used market. He had them bring that in, and he compared that to $10,000. And what his determination was there was no like consideration. The consideration was not sufficient to support a simple contract. It has to be radically different. So what happens is if this guy had gave him maybe 20 or 30 grand it's a little more gray area. The judge would not have weighed in on that equation. So